The last free pulse. Bastion 9, Earth's last unmodified stronghold, wasn't on any official map. The Accord had erased it from every registry a decade ago, but people still whispered its name, mostly in fear, sometimes in hope. Riven Cael moved fast through the neon-lit tunnels, breath misting in the cold recycled air. He didn't need the shadows to hide. Everyone down here was a ghost already. In his hands, a stolen neural key. He glanced over his shoulder. No patrols. No drones. But he felt it, the pulse in his chest, that low-frequency hum in his veins, the raw instinct that told him when something was about to go wrong. It wasn't a sixth sense. It was something more dangerous. It was emotion. And that alone made him a threat to the entire galaxy. The Accord had ended war 100 years ago. Not through peace, but through code. The Bled Protocol, a neural overwrite that stripped aggression, impulse, and disobedience from every sentient species willing to comply. Most begged for it. No more crime. No more chaos. No more war. But humanity hesitated. Some complied. Most didn't. And a few, like Riven, were born completely outside it. No mods. No filters. No compliance implants. Just raw mind and memory. They were called the last pulse. Living relics. Dangerous. And very, very illegal. He reached the old vault gate, hands trembling as he slotted in the key. The lock hissed open with a satisfying click, and the heavy steel groaned as it slid back. Inside was a forgotten command hub, rusted panels, flickering lights, and a dusty emblem of the old Earth Federation. On the wall, spray-painted in red. "We bleed, we remember." The words gave him pause. "Didn't think you'd make it," a voice said behind him. Riven spun, hand reaching instinctively for the shock blade on his hip. It was Sarah Vex, clad in layered leather and carbon thread mesh. Her left eye glowed faint blue, augmented, but not Accord tech. "You always this dramatic," he said, lowering his blade. Sarah grinned. "Only when we're about to change history." She walked past him and activated a long-dead console. Static crackled across the screen. "Your neural key didn't just unlock a vault," she said. "It woke up something older." Riven tilted his head. "Older than this graveyard. Older than the bleed itself." A second console lit up. Maps. DNA strands. Military command lines from pre-bleed Earth. Sarah's tone dropped. "You know what this is." He stepped forward, eyes scanning the screen. Rebel Protocol / active. Subject: Cael, Riven. Designation: Vanguard. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. Sarah's smile was almost sad. "The last human designed for war. You were born off-grid for a reason. Your mother was part of the first wave, the Forsaken line. When the Accord rolled out the bleed, they chose to hide you instead." Riven stepped back, voice tight. "That's not possible. I'm just—" "You're the last natural-born rebel," she interrupted. "And the only one who can activate the full breach." He stared at the glowing data stream. A part of him wanted to run. The other part, the burning, breathing, restless part, was ready. Ready to fight. Ready to lead. Outside, warning sirens flickered in the tunnel. Drones were scanning. "They found us," Sarah said. Riven didn't move. He touched the console. And pressed accept. A pulse burst out from a hub, silent but seismic. Across the buried sectors of Earth, old nodes began to blink. Something ancient stirred in the dark. Riven turned toward Sarah. "What now?" She stepped beside him, gaze hard. "Now we wake the rebellion." Echo pulse. The signal had been sent. And across the ruins of Earth, something old, something buried deep inside the broken code of the Accord, was beginning to twitch. Riven stood in silence as the lights around the command hub shifted from red to blue. The data streams dancing across the walls weren't just electrical, they were alive. Sarah tapped on a console, pulling up the system map. It worked. The echo pulse made contact with at least 12 dormant rebel nodes. Underground cities, memory caches, old neural relay towers. All of it's lighting up. Riven leaned forward. "What's it doing to the people?" She hesitated. That's what we don't know yet. Some will resist. Others will fracture. Depends how deep the bleed runs in them. Far above Earth's surface, aboard the orbital relic known as Station Arcturus, a cold-eyed alien figure watched the same pulse flare across the void. Chancellor Raylan of the Accord wasn't surprised. He'd been expecting something. But not this. Bring up the source point, he ordered. The AI flickered. Signal confirmed. Origin, Bastion 9. Human Rebel Sector. He narrowed his eyes. Initiate Purge Directive. Clean the infection before it spreads. Back on Earth, Riven and Sarah stood before a rusted chamber marked Phase Core. Inside, a stasis pod hissed open, revealing a pale, tattooed figure in deep cryosleep. His name was etched into the glass. Karuz Vex. Status, decommissioned/asset, memory carrier. Sarah's voice broke slightly. My brother. Riven raised an eyebrow. I thought the Accord wiped everyone who resisted. They did. But the first generation of rebels had a trick. They stored memories, entire consciousness profiles, in phase sleep. Neural override shielding, buried beneath bioencryption. Which means? Riven asked. Sarah exhaled. He remembers what we forgot. Tactics. Names. Truth. They activated the revival sequence. Karuz gasped back into reality like a man drowning in time. His eyes, one cybernetic, one human, locked onto Riven. You're early, he said. Riven blinked. Excuse me. Karuz stood, shaky but sharp. We didn't expect the Vanguard to awaken this soon. The protocol was set to activate at the fall of the Accord. Not during its peak. Sarah stepped in. We don't have time. The Purge fleet is mobilizing. Bastion won't hold. Karuz nodded slowly. Then we don't wait for history. We make it. The rebel hideout shifted into high gear. Old war drones were rebooted, command bunkers relinked, and sleeper agents across Earth started receiving whispers through their implants. The Echo Pulse was doing more than waking humans. It was reaching modified species across the stars. The ones who remembered war. Who remembered freedom. Meanwhile, Riven sat in a side chamber, staring at his own reflection. The glowing neural map hovering above his skull showed zero modification. Pure. Wild. Dangerous. Why me? He muttered. Juno, the AI embedded into the rebel system, answered from the speakers. Because your mind still bleeds. And the Accord fears what it can't predict. Bleed, rebel, spark, awaken. Riven shook his head. All these words. What do they actually mean? They mean, Juno said softly, that you are the last firewall against a galaxy that mistook control for peace. The walls shook. A distant boom echoed through the base. They're here, Karuz growled. Sarah handed Riven a pulse rifle and a data injector. If we fall, you get to the uplink tower. Broadcast phase 2 of the pulse. That signal could awaken entire colonies. Riven took the gear. And if I can't? Sarah looked at him, hard and sure. Then we die. But the rebellion doesn't. Outside, the Accord synthetic soldiers dropped from the sky, metal wings folding in like knives. Their eyes glowed cold white. No fear. No emotion. Just order. The resistance forces, ragged but fierce, braced themselves. The last war for free thought had begun. The Forsaken signal. The sky above Bastion, 9 burned red with descent fire. Accord Purge drones rained from orbit like falling stars, sleek, silver, emotionless. Their wings flared with plasma thrust as they dove, weapons drawn, minds blank. Inside the command hub, Karuz Vex slammed a fist on the console. They've scrambled a full Purge Squad 0. Not just drones, hybrid enforcers. They want Riven dead before the full breach begins. Sarah turned to Riven, her jaw tight. We don't have time to defend Bastion. We go now, or this whole rebellion gets crushed before it even breathes. Riven followed her down the corridor, his head filled with static. Ever since the Echo Pulse went live, his brain had been humming like a live wire. Not pain. Not noise. Something deeper. Like voices buried in the code. Like memories that weren't his. Or maybe they were. The neural imprint left behind by his mother, one of the first-generation rebels, was starting to bloom. Buried in his DNA, now activated. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the Meridian Tower," Sarah said, pulling on a gauntlet. "It's the last functioning uplink core in the region. If we reach it, we can fire the Forsaken signal." Riven raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Caruz cut in. "It's not just another pulse. It's a deep code override, a signal that reaches the sublayer of Accord programming. It won't just wake humans. It'll fracture suppression in every sentient mind that's ever been tagged." "You're talking about—" Riven's voice trailed off. Sarah nodded. "An awakening." They reached the surface exit, where a stolen grav sled hummed like a beast ready to pounce. Riven, Sarah, and Caruz climbed aboard. As the vehicle shot across the cracked terrain toward the tower, Earth's skies erupted in streaks of white-hot energy fire. Accord warships pierced the stratosphere. All of them scanning. All of them hunting him. "Why me?" Riven muttered, gripping the sled's handrail. "Why not you, Caruz? You're smarter. You've fought before. I'm just some underground runner." Caruz looked over, his mechanical eye glowing faint blue. "Because you weren't just born without the bleed, Riven. You were born with something it can't erase." Riven frowned. "What?" Sarah answered softly. "Will." They reached the base of Meridian Tower, a crumbling spire wrapped in rusted scaffolds, blinking with ancient lights. Guard bots lay deactivated in the dust, their minds already partially affected by the early pulse. But as they entered the core, they weren't alone. A figure stood inside the broadcast chamber, waiting. Black armor. Accord insignia. But human. "Who the hell?" Caruz stepped forward, weapon raised. The figure removed its helmet. Riven froze. It was Commander Riven Cael. His father. "You were never supposed to survive," Lane said, voice cold. "The protocol was designed to make you obsolete." Riven's fists clenched. "You sold us out. I spared you." His father stepped closer. "I made sure they never found your signal. But now you've activated the one thing that could collapse centuries of peace." "Peace?" Riven laughed bitterly. "You mean control." Caruz raised his rifle, but Lane didn't flinch. "I came to stop you. But now I see. I can't," Lane said quietly. "Because you're not a mistake. You're a reset." He stepped aside, revealing the broadcast console, still functional, still armed with the Forsaken signal payload. "You really believe this signal will awaken more than humans?" Riven asked. "It will awaken anyone," Caruz said. "Who remembers what it means to choose?" Sarah handed Riven the neural plug. "Once you connect," she warned, "the signal will pass through your memory stream. It'll use your mind as a template." "If I fail?" "You won't." Riven sat, plugged in. A flash of heat behind his eyes. Then darkness. Then voices. Then everything. The broadcast ignited. Across Earth, minds stirred. Neural firewalls cracked. Emotion returned. Memory. Rage. Hope. Identity. And in far-off systems, aliens, hybrids, half-AI minds, woke up from inside the cage. The Accord's control shattered like glass. Riven gasped as the stream cut off. Sarah held him steady. Caruz stared at the signal tower, blinking in awe. "It's begun," he whispered. "Across the stars, they're rising." Riven looked out across the ash-gray horizon. In the sky, the Accord warships faltered. The rebirth of rebellion had truly begun. Rise of the Uncoded. The Accord's control grid was collapsing. Not in theory. Not in silence. But in flames. Orbiting command ships faltered, AI directives went offline, and across the colonized systems of the Accord, entire species stirred awake. The Forsaken signal had done what no war had achieved in a century. It rewrote fate. And it all started with one human. Uncoded, unbroken, unafraid. Riven Cael stood atop the broken relay tower, breathing in the scorched earth air. The sky no longer held just warships. Now it shimmered with the shimmer trails of awakened rebel fleets, those who had hidden, hunted, or simply forgotten what it meant to choose. Down below, Bastion 9 was half rubble, but still pulsing with movement. Refugees from the Undercity, deactivated drones, and the last free humans, all rallying beneath a broken flag. Sarah approached him, her gear scorched but her eyes sharp. The Accord's core AI node, Prime Ethica, is still active. It's trying to re-establish control through deep-layer subroutines. Riven nodded slowly. So it's not over. Not yet. But we know where the final node is. Karuz arrived, limping but alive, slinging a pulse rifle over his shoulder. It's buried beneath Core Archies, the first Accord citadel, he said. Back when they called it the Cradle of Peace. If we breach that core, we shut down every override system in existence. Forever. And if we don't? Riven asked. Then the Accord resets, stronger. And this rebellion burns out like all the rest. The plan was madness. A direct strike on the heart of the machine. But they didn't hesitate. Because now, they weren't alone. Alien fighters with torn Accord banners joined their cause. Ex-guards who'd ripped out their emotion dampers. Modified minds reconnected to their truth. They were calling themselves the Uncoded, those who no longer obeyed the script. And Riven Cael, born outside the system, was their signal fire. The infiltration of Core Archies wasn't stealth. It was a storm. Drop pods hit like thunder. Drone squadrons clashed mid-air. The Accord unleashed its last automated defense, the final protocol, an AI swarm designed to overwrite all rogue code. It was intelligent. It was relentless. And it feared only one thing. Original will. Riven led the breach team into the Citadel core, neural fire lighting his skin. The tower pulsed like a living machine, its walls whispering commands in forgotten tongues. At the center was Ethica, the original Accord core. A massive sphere of thought and data suspended in plasma. It spoke. You are irrational, Riven Cael. Chaos. Variance. You bleed too much to be trusted. He stepped forward, eyes burning. That's why I'm dangerous. And that's why I win. Ethica released the swarm. Millions of microdrones, each carrying rewrite code, swirled toward the rebel team like a storm of metal insects. Karuz was hit first, falling with a scream. Sarah covered Riven, her pulse cannon blazing until it overheated. Riven, eyes locked on the core, raised the final weapon, the Unbind Protocol, a data spear forged from his mother's neural echo and the Forsaken signal. He hurled it into the AI. White light exploded. Silence followed. Then, collapse. The Accord fell in a ripple, not a bang. Control grids snapped. Protocols failed. Entire systems flickered into autonomy. And for the first time in over a century, the galaxy went quiet. Not from suppression, but from freedom. Later, in the rebuilt Bastion, Riven stood before a new council, not of conquerors, but of thinkers. Fighters. Dreamers. The Uncoded. We were never supposed to win, he said. They counted on us following. On us choosing safety over soul. He looked out over a sea of faces, human, alien, hybrid. But now, we choose. Sarah stepped beside him, her voice proud and clear. We are not broken. We are not erased. We are the last race to bleed. And the first to awaken.